Hey there, good morning.
Good morning.
Hope everyone's doing well. I think we may be going to give a few more minutes. I was having some technical issues to wait and see if we have everyone on. I'm going to be sitting in for Jonathan today to chair the meeting.
Morning, everyone.
Hey, good morning, Laura. How are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you this morning?
Good morning, everybody.
Good
Good morning.
morning.
Shantae, you're taking minutes, correct, this morning? You're starting?
I am.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Do you have the number of members who are part of the committee so you'll know when we reach quorum?
I don't. I do need
Okay.
that
I'm
information.
taking note of that. I'll let you guys know.
Okay, yeah, I have a list. I'm working on two different screens and I'm like, I need to probably pull that up because Jonathan did send that to me. Melissa, you're checking that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's 10:04. Just to honor everyone's time, we'll go ahead and get started. Once we reach quorum, Melissa, if you can let me know so we can um go ahead and approve the minutes from the last meeting. I think everyone on the meeting should be familiar with everyone. I don't think there's anyone new. Lloyd, is there anyone new that you know of that's that's joining us on today?
I don't believe so. I think everybody is experienced with the work of the committee.
Okay, all right. Well, welcome. We're scheduled from 10 to 11:30, and hopefully we can stay on time and if we give you back a little time at the end, that would be also great. But we'll go ahead and work through the agenda. Um, Next is our public comment period. I don't think anyone has registered for the public comment period or has been notified the committee to speak. So we're going to move on to we have quorum. Thank you, Melissa. So the minutes for from the last meeting, has everyone had a chance to review those? Were there any edits or changes that needed to be modified or made to the minutes before they are adopted? Okay. If not, yes, Miss Angela,
There needs to be a correction in the name
which
of
name?
of the ones that's present.
Was there any particular name that was cited incorrectly?
The name Angela.
Oh,
You will
okay,
look at that. If you look at that,
okay, all right.
if he's if anyone caught that.
Okay. And the correct spelling is how it appears on the screen, Angela.
Hold on, let me go back down. Other minutes. Hold on, let me go back. Look at, isn't it two, am I looking at it wrong? There's two Angelas on there?
Hold on, let me pull up the minutes. I didn't pull it up.
So just the Angela Holmes one, correct?
Yeah, you see the other Angela?
Yeah. I went by the little spreadsheet. Okay.
Her last name is Lewis.
Okay. We have an Angela Vick Holmes, and then we have an Angela
No.
Holmes
No, that's incorrect. It's Angela Vick Lewis.
Lewis. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know. Okay. Ms. Shante will, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name if I'm not, please correct me. I don't want to butcher your name. She'll make the correction. So given that there's a need to correct a name, Lloyd, can we, do we need to make that edit before the minutes can be adopted, or can we adopt the minutes given that we will make the edit to the name duly noted?
You can approve the minutes with the note of that correction.
Okay, all right, thank you. Can someone make a motion to adopt the minutes from October?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes with the correction of the name.
Okay.
And a second,
Okay, thank you, Angela. And Renee, you second?
yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. The minutes from last month's October's meeting has been adopted, given the correction with the name for those that attended last month's meeting. Next item on the agenda.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, we need the committee's approval of the motion to approve the minutes.
Oh, sorry about that step. I'm overlooking that step. Okay. In the chat, if you can type yes in agreement of adoption of the minutes. So we can have record of that. Okay. All right. Has everyone responded in the chat who can vote on the minutes? Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the 2024 proposed permanent supportive housing scorecard. Laura's going to facilitate this discussion and present this information, and we will need a vote following the discussion.
Thank
So I'll
you,
turn it
Madam-
over to Lloyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Lloyd
Good
Schmeiser,
morning.
Community Development. We reviewed this proposed 2024 COC project evaluation tool. This would be the tool used in 2024 for the two semi-annual evaluations of our COC funded permanent housing projects. Excuse me. We reviewed this tool in the October meeting. I believe since then I may have made a amendment, a modification to question 1 from how we have scored rapid rehousing projects on the length of project participation before housing move-in. I amended it to have this question more closely focus on the COC approved length of project participation before housing move-in, which is 60 days. And so hopefully you can see my screen. And so we're more clearly evaluating projects on whether or not they are meeting that 60-day threshold or less. If they do get, if they have a length of stay, length of time before housing move-in of less than 60 days, they would get full credit of 20 points. If it's more than 60 days, they would, the score would be reduced 1 point for every 2-day increase or fraction thereof in the average length of time of project participation before housing move-in. So for example, a project that had an average length of time before housing move-in of 65 days would have 3 points deducted from the 20 points possible for a total of 17 2024 performance points. The growth score would also look at the score of 2023, and if, for example, a project's length of time, project participation in 2023 was 69 days, and they reduced it to 64 days, they would get 1 growth point for every 3-day reduction. So they would get 1 point since they only had about 1 3/4 points or 5 days and not 6 days. So that's, I believe, the only substantive amendment that we have made. I've done a little more tweaking of the directions for making these calculations throughout many of these questions on the tool. Again, we're adding a new section on equity, but that would only be used or worked on in the actual COC funding competition period, where we would work to get information for these equity questions from the applicants, the renewal applicants, as part of the application for renewal project funding during the COC competition, as all of these questions related to equity are not, answering them does not require, it's not use information in the annual performance report, so we would need to gather other information from the project applicants, the renewal applicants, to answer these questions, and that would be done again during the second evaluation, not during the first evaluation. The first evaluation would be done in the essentially in the first quarter of 2024, which is why we are asking the committee to approve this tool at this time, so that we can begin preparing our projects and prepare. We're also working with NCCH at the data center to see if much of the analysis of the APR could be done through a custom report within the HMIS, and we hope to make progress on that by the end of the year. With that introduction, Madam Chair, I'll welcome any additional comments or discussion about the tool.
Lloyd, good morning, everyone. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Lloyd just said about asking NCCEH to sort of automate the tool. So those of you that have been kind enough to be reviewers in the past know that it's a very detailed process, and it takes quite a while for each application to get through it. If we are successful with NCCEH, it will significantly reduce the time that it takes to review accurately most of this evaluation tool. So that is why we're doing it that way, and hope that you don't shy away from helping us review in the future. We are looking to make it a much simpler and cleaner process, where the time commitment will also be reduced. So Thank you.
Yeah, and I had a question, Lloyd, and I think I may have brought this up before, but I was looking back through my notes to see. Um, I know in the past we've tried to measure the length of time from a person going through coordinated intake to being referred to an organization or profit project for permanent supportive housing. However, I'm wondering, is 60 days, and other organizations that are represented on this meeting too may chime in, is it realistic given the housing barriers that many of the people that we serve, as well as the housing market, because right now there's a very low housing market vacancy rate, especially for LMI, affordable housing. So I'm just wondering, is 60 days, is that something that is being used across the country or in similar markets, or is that realistic for Durham, given the housing market and the members that we serve?
I think number one, this is the average length of time. It is the benchmark that was approved by the COC board in the spring of 2022. If we want to suggest a revision of that, we certainly can look at that potentially in in 2024. HUD's goal remains, I think, that from the time people are entered into a rapid rehousing project to the time they are moved to permanent housing, that length of time is 30 days or less. So we did adjust this to twice that 30-day limit. And again, we're looking at the average, not so, we might have some people above the 60-day mark, but hopefully there would be enough people in the project that do come under the 60-day mark that the overall average for the project participants would be 60 days or less. So it's not to say that everybody's going to be under. What we had done previously was we did look at the overall percentage of people that were within that 60-day limit. So this is slightly changing that to not look at the percentage of people that are within that limit, but to actually look at the specific average length of time, which is what the COC approved benchmark references.
Okay. All right. I'm just wondering, just again, because we don't own or operate a lot of properties and we don't really control that process oftentimes. And with some of the members that we serve, given their housing barriers, I'm just wondering whether or not it's just realistic given the market right now. I know we have things that are coming online as far as new affordable housing, and there are some designated landlords who are willing to work with many of our agencies. However, it does continue to be a process where some members, some individuals and households have more housing barriers than others, especially when you're dealing with an eviction or a registered sex offender.
That is certainly true.
Any other comments or questions for Lord for this presentation? Okay, seeing none, we need to vote on the proposed change to the permanent supportive housing or the COC evaluation tool rather for 2024. We need to have a motion and then we will need to vote in the chat. So first I will entertain the motion to adopt the 2024 proposed permanent housing scorecard.
So moved.
You're making a motion, Ms. Renee?
Yes, yes, I am. So
Okay.
moved, as you stated.
Okay, we need a second. Please.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Miss Angela. Okay, and if we can vote in the chat. Um, okay, thank you. All right, motion carries. The next item on our agenda is the 2024 Housing First evaluation. First is we have two sub items for this agenda item. One is the adoption of the proposed evaluation tool. We do need to vote on that. And then the other is the Housing First evaluation. This is for information only. Both items are going to be presented by Lloyd, so I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you. Now I am sharing the second tool. This, again, we reviewed it with the committee at the October meeting. Did receive some questions about specific aspects of the tool. We did not end up, in light of those questions, amending or editing any of the questions on the tool. So again, the tool looks at various aspects of a project's Housing First implementation. This would be used to evaluate the Housing First implementation of our COC funded permanent housing projects. One of the keys, as we mentioned, the October meeting, is that it was clear in the 2023 COC homeless grants competition that HUD is expecting COCs to evaluate Housing First implementation of projects on an annual basis. You'll recall that in the first quarter of 2023, we did a cross COC evaluation with our COC colleagues in Orange County and in Wake County. We're not proposing to do something similar in 2024, but would simply use this tool to evaluate our projects in Durham. We would we believe this is a simpler tool to use. It would rely largely on some information perhaps from the HMIS for tools in terms of some of these percentages or length of time that people might be in the project, but most of the information would need to be gathered from a project or participating organization based on an interview with project staff and or with organizational leadership. I've scrolled through the tool briefly to come to the scoring table, which shows essentially the five components sections of the tool that would be evaluated and the points possible for each of those sections. So all sections are not created equal, in that they all have differing point values. But we would evaluate housing process and structure, housing and services, the service philosophy of the project, the various service array or the various services that are made available to people in the project, with some questions only applicable to permanent supportive housing projects, which leads to why there's additional points applicable to permanent supportive housing projects above and beyond those that are available for rapid rehousing projects. And then the whole team structure and how the project provides staffing support to the project. So it would require, and probably the challenge of doing a Housing First implementation, is in 2024 is going to be recruiting and particularly recruiting volunteers from the COC to participate in the evaluation process. We're envisioning hopefully having as many as 7 teams of 3 evaluators each involved with evaluating seven project types. We need volunteers for Housing for New Hopes, 3 project types of project-based permanent supportive housing, tenant-based permanent supportive housing, and then their rapid rehousing project. And then we need teams to evaluate Alliance's DASH project, Urban Ministries Fresh Start project, the LGBTQ Center's rapid rehousing project, and the rapid rehousing project of Families Moving Forward, which has begun implementation earlier in 2023. So both the last 2, both the LGBTQ Center and Families Moving Forward's project are newer projects, but nevertheless, we want to recommend kind of evaluating their Housing First implementation at the beginning, so that hopefully, if there are particular challenges that related to Housing First implementation, those projects can hopefully adjust and adopt and respond to Housing First evaluation more quickly. So those are our recommendations. Again, probably a minimum of 2 evaluators, but hopefully 3, and we'd want all of the evaluators to not be affiliated with any of those organizations that we would be evaluating, to avoid conflicts of interest. And so Tracy and Shantae, you would be off the hook for participating in this evaluation process, since you are on staff for organizations that would have their Housing First implementation processes for COC funded projects evaluated. Don't know if we didn't get any suggestions for updating this tool from the committee by the October 31st deadline, or even since October 31st. So basically, it seems like, based on the dialogue we had with the committee at the October meeting, that the committee understands and accepts that the tool is a worthwhile tool, at least begin starting an evaluation of our COC funded projects. That's all I have to share at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay. And I just have a quick question for clarification. So if you're going to need 17 volunteers, or approximately 17, 15 probably to 17.
2021, actually, we have seven project types that we would want to evaluate, all project types, and hopefully a minimum of 3 volunteers per team would require as many as 21. Now, we might have particularly generous volunteers that might be willing to complete two evaluations, but hopefully, if we have enough volunteers, we can have each volunteer only assigned to one project.
Okay. And will the volunteers will it be a combination of city staff and volunteers that will facilitate the Housing First evaluation?
We've not talked about it within the homelessness team about possibly participating in an evaluation, but that certainly is an option. If particularly if we need additional volunteers, we may be able to have the current 6 members of the homeless team participate on an evaluation team as well.
Okay.
But we've not discussed that.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions from any of the other members of the subcommittee regarding
Eliza
the?
has her hand up.
Yes.
you. Yeah, I guess I'm curious, Lloyd, given the amount of reviewers, how many folks do we have that would not have conflicts of interest with this work? Because I'm hearing anyone who has a conflict of interest couldn't be involved in evaluating any of the projects.
That is correct. I don't know. I don't know if Melissa knows the number of organizations that are members of the COC that would not have conflicts of interest, and certainly there are a lot of members of the Homeless Services Advisory Committee. I think the vast majority of people on that committee do not have conflicts of interest. Tracy and Russell Pierce do have conflicts. Can't think of anyone else right off that is COC funded that serves on the HSAC. So I don't know, Melissa, do you have any additional information about kind of the recruiting pool for volunteers to participate in this?
Off the top of my head, I can't give you the exact number of people who have conflicts, but I don't see why we couldn't, reach out to the full committee, see if there's interest in scoring. Just because I know we have a larger pool in the full committee that definitely wouldn't have conflicts.
Okay, that's helpful. I think just the way that we're talking about this, I wanted to make sure we weren't setting ourselves up, given the higher number of reviewers needed. I think the other question I quickly have is just looking at the first two assessment measures and considering what Tracy was sharing as a concern around housing stock in our previous item. I'm just curious about if I were looking at an application and perhaps the scenario is that a person is able to choose, but there's only one choice. How would that be measured in this like first example, let's say, because we know that we don't have a lot of stock. So perhaps this idea of choosing is limited. So how are we going to think about that when we're filling out this application?
Well,
evaluation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that does move into a bit into the whole training of volunteers. I would say that part of the coordinated entry process and the referral process is that clients are to be given adequate choices in terms of where they choose to live, and should be given a variety of options. Because client choice is an important right, and so we'd want to look at not only the project's policies and procedures, but again also look at what does program staff talk about, how they give people options of where they might live. We do have a couple project-based permanent supportive housing projects that might have a limited choice when a person agrees to move into a project-based permanent supportive housing project. They oftentimes will not have a lot of choice other than perhaps if there's two units within a particular complex that are available, they'd be able to choose between those two apartments. But sometimes, and probably more likely, if they want to move into that particular project-based permanent supportive housing project, they would the only choice would be to look at or to accept the unit that's actually available. So that would limit their choice. But again, they could also look at if the client does not want to move into the project-based unit that's available, are there tenant-based permanent supportive housing options that could be available to the tenant?
Got it. I think I hear you, and I just want to make sure that when we're evaluating, our measures are an evaluation of the program. And maybe housing stock is separate from that, but the ways where that might end up showing up as one number together is something that I think we should just watch for. Because if that, to me, that's two separate things. One is the program and the other is the housing stock availability. And so
Absolutely.
how do we think about that, particularly where we
Right.
are right now? And I think I just don't want us to have numbers and think they're reflecting one thing and really they're reflecting a couple things.
Right.
So
right.
that's just that was what I was thinking, particularly as Tracy shared what she shared in the previous item. But I think since this is the first time, it would be great to go back to the numbers afterwards and have a conversation again about, what does this look like in data versus what this actually looks like in experience, and think about how we might continue refining the tool.
Absolutely, and you raised some excellent points, and I think it's a big reason why we would like to have at least 3 evaluators looking at the project, because making determinations about which of the 4 options to score a project at can involve some subjective consideration of the information that's in the program's policies and procedures, as well as based on content that is gleaned from staff interviews, so that hopefully an evaluation team would reach some consensus as to what number or how to score a particular project based on each person's read, and they would have opportunities to consult with each other and reach a joint determination as best they can. Once this hopefully tool is approved by the committee, we'll also move into how we would use the results of the tool, particularly in reference to the overall COC scoring, or the scoring of the projects.
Are there any other, I can't see.
Angela has her hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello. Although I've participated in the scoring in the past, I cannot continue to do that, and have not recently, due to the fact that I have been on the board in the past, or worked for such organizations, so I cannot participate.
Thank you for sharing that, Angela.
Are there any other comments or questions or feedback for Lord as we've concluded the presentation for the adoption of the proposed evaluation tool for the Housing First? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adopt the proposed evaluation tool for the Housing First evaluation for 2024.
I'll make a motion to adopt the Housing First evaluation tool for 2024. This is Eliza Matthew.
Okay, thank you, Eliza. Anyone for a second?
I second Angela Holmes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Angela. Okay, and if you could in the chat, vote please. Not seeing any nays. We've all voted to adopt the 2024 Housing First evaluation that's been presented to us. The next item agenda, Lord, will continue with is information only regarding the Housing First evaluation teams. And I think we started to have a segue into that. So we'll let you continue.
We did. We will be starting to hopefully get the word out and working to recruit eligible volunteers and hopefully begin forming teams in the first month or so of 2024, so that we would envision getting the actual evaluation started probably in the February-March period. We do have some flexibility. One issue, I'm not sure it's reflected on the agenda as clearly as it could be, but it is part of this, and that is a recommendation to the committee that the results of this Housing First evaluation not become part of our official evaluation of our permanent housing COC funded projects in 2024. We do want consensus, I think, about from the committee on how we use the results of this evaluation. Committee Chair Jonathan Crooms and I did have some discussion about that, and we agreed that on a recommendation that while the evaluation would be important and we would want to do the best job we can to evaluate the Housing First implementation of our projects, we're not recommending that the score on the tool of any of the projects be incorporated into the either of the two semi-annual evaluations of the projects. Rather, they would stand alone, and we would use the results to continue to work with our projects to improve their Housing First implementation. The reasons for that are several. One is that, as we've already alluded to, we don't know for sure how many volunteers we're going to get to participate in this evaluation. We do know more than likely that we're not going to get professional evaluators as such. Even if we use staff from within the homelessness team, we're not necessarily, I wouldn't consider myself a professional evaluator of Housing First implementation, and I don't know that anybody else on the team would consider themselves a professional program evaluator. So short of that, we'll do our best to train all of the volunteers in the use of the tool. We do believe, particularly with the hopefully the book that Homeless Service Advisory Committee members are receiving about Housing First. I think that's still in the process of being distributed and will be distributed soon. That hopefully that might serve as a good resource for helping people understand Housing First dynamics and strategies. But all that said, if the committee is prepared today to agree to not use the evaluation, Housing First evaluation as part of the overall scoring of projects, the committee can make that determination today. So we do intend to begin to work to pull together volunteers who would receive some training, more than likely from members of the homeless team, on how to use this tool. And then we would again, probably by lot, or perhaps based on the interests of the people who volunteer, they would be assigned to evaluate the 7 projects that I outlined earlier, and would work to begin that process in early 2024 and get it done probably by the end of April of next year, so that we can have that for the projects as well as for the COC in this committee's consideration. That's all I have on that, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Lloyd. And I'd like to add that I think that's good that we will kind of keep those two separate, simply because evaluating the overall efficacy of a project versus housing first is 2 different kind of elements to kind of evaluate. And again, sometimes there are different variables that we cannot control for. And whereas there are some things, in terms of compliance, meeting regulations, requirements, the COC's requirements to be eligible, I think are very kind of separate entities of that. So I can appreciate those 2 things being separate, but not necessarily equal, but needed in terms of being to constantly and annually evaluate and assess whether or not we're doing what we are charged to do to help those people who fall somewhere along that housing continuum to find stable housing. So any comments or any questions regarding the information that's that was presented by Lloyd? Okay, and this was for information purposes only. We do not have to vote on this. The next item on our agenda, thank you, Lloyd, is the review of the satisfactory performance threshold policy. And so I'll yield to you as well.
Thank you. So one of the responsibilities of the committee is to make a recommendation to the Homeless Services Advisory Committee on the satisfactory performance level that we would expect projects to meet to be considered a satisfactory performer on the annual homeless evaluation tool. I am trying to find my okay. Trying to share my screen. This is not the memo I wanted to show. I'm looking to share. One more time. Let's see if I can. Are you, Madam Chair, are you seeing the monitoring, evaluation, and ranking policy for COC funding requests?
No.
Yeah, not yet.
If you want to send it to me, Lloyd, I can pull it up for you. It's like it'll start to share and then it ends.
About now.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
there we go.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. So this monitoring, evaluation, and ranking policy, I've just brought it up, just particularly perhaps for some newer members who may not have seen it. It is the overall policy and procedure document that we use to guide the semi-annual evaluations of our COC funded projects. And I'm scrolling down to procedure numbers 6 and 7, which read that in the first year of implementing the policies, if permanent housing renewal projects score less than 65%, they would be placed on probation and have 1 year to improve their project performance. And then procedure 7 says, after the first year of implementation, a satisfactory performance threshold shall be established and approved by the COC board by the end of the calendar year, taking into consideration the prior year's performance results. largely because of the COVID pandemic, we did not recommend making any adjustments to the 65% threshold of the on the scoring tool that we have used in calendar years 2020, 2021, and 2022, and in the evaluations of 2023 as well. So we've kept the satisfactory performance threshold at the 65% level. The opportunity, however, does present itself for the committee to choose to recommend that we keep the 65% threshold, or that we perhaps increase it to, for example, a 75% threshold, or that's not 75%. I don't think I would be recommending that, but I would invite the committee perhaps to consider whether a 70% threshold for satisfactory performance might be in order for 2024. So the advantages, I guess, of adjusting satisfactory performance level would be to confirm to our projects that we do want them to pay attention to overall project performance. Madam Chair, are you seeing the September 5th, 2023 memo of Chair Crooms to the Homeless Services Advisory Committee regarding funding recommendations for 2023?
No, it's not. You were sharing your screen and then it went out again. So
Yeah,
it's
well,
just,
I stopped sharing, which is why it went out. But then let's see, I want to share.
okay, it's back up. Nope, it's gone again.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to share the right document that I want to share. Now I believe you may be seeing the memo.
Yes.
Okay. So, so a couple of things regarding a consideration. One is that as I've shared, we by increasing the satisfactory performance threshold or percentage, we would be saying to our projects that we really do want them to focus on how well they are performing, and the consequences of unsatisfactory performance are largely that we would ask projects to develop a performance improvement plan. I brought up the memo to primarily to show table 1 on page 2, the permanent housing renewal project scores. If you see my cursor moving, you'll see that only one project, Streets to Home 2, scored below 65% and actually only one project scored below 70% in the second evaluation of our renewal projects in 2023, and that was Streets to Home 2. Another reason for considering increasing the percentage for satisfactory performance is that HUD is very serious about COCs reviewing project performance and choosing to reallocate projects that are low performing. And so we have a responsibility as a COC to work closely with our renewal projects to do all we can as a COC to help them improve project performance. It's part of the reason we're evaluating them semi-annually so that they kind of can know where they stand, and that they can look at areas where they are struggling and look at what they need to do to improve project performance. I think it's certainly up to the committee. We've not made a formal recommendation to the committee to adopt a new performance level or a benchmark for satisfactory performance. It's up to the committee essentially to make a determination as to whether it wishes to improve or to set a higher satisfactory performance level. It's been at 65%. We can continue to keep it at 65% for 2024, or if there is a desire, the committee could recommend that the HSAC increase their satisfactory performance level to 70% on the evaluation tool for 2024.
Okay. Are we open for questions and comments based on Lloyd's presentation of information at this time? Ms. Renee, I see your hand up.
Yes, Lloyd, the previous document that you showed us referenced, I believe, 24 CFR 578, I guess the Code of Federal Regulation. Does the performance percentage, is it impacted by that, or is it something that we are able to determine? Is there any impact to that? You're asking for us to possibly raise it from 65 to 70%?
Correct. COCs have the responsibility for determining what constitutes satisfactory performance. I mean, there's guidance within the HUD notice of funding opportunity as to what it looks at, but the overall intent rule part 24 CFR part 578 does not specifically set a satisfactory performance threshold. You know, and there's no while our performance evaluation tool is based heavily on measures that HUD recommends or has included in its own optional performance ranking tool and rating tool. It is really up to the COCs to determine what constitutes satisfactory performance for projects that are funded by that COC. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, and also, where is this document posted? Is it on the web somewhere?
It is on the web. Melissa, may I ask you to post a link to this document in the chat, if you would, please?
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks.
So Lloyd, these the thresholds are set by the COCs. It's recommended by HUD that we have some measure or some metrics in place to measure overall performance of each project that's being funded. However, the threshold is being defined by the Durham COC, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So,
Right.
okay. And so doing so, I'm again, I'm going back to what I kind of brought up earlier, because as I'm looking at just the numbers in terms of where projects kind of fell out in terms of where the ranking and how they were overall ranked in terms of meeting performance metrics. I'm just wondering, beneath the aggregate data, is there any type of information that provides more insight into maybe shifts of changes? I know you all probably have created a PIP, a performance improvement plan, in the event that organizations or projects fall below certain thresholds, but I'm just wondering, is there any insight or an addendum to the numbers to kind of provide a narrative as to what may have shifted? Because again, I'm going to continue to bring this up as an agency, as we do not own or operate property. So a lot of times the market and then the members that we serve sometimes can impact overall performance as well. So I'm just wondering, beyond just the numbers, the aggregate data, is there information related to why there may have been a shift or any of that to kind of provide insight into projects that may have fallen a little short based on comparison of the year before?
I think those are good considerations. Tracy, I would say that we have worked diligently to communicate the results of each semi-annual evaluation to project management and the staff at these organizations. We have provided Excel spreadsheets that clearly show how projects scored on each of the approved questions of the evaluation tool. And we're certainly willing to dialogue and provide technical assistance to projects. It is a challenging environment. And I mean, your comment, is well taken, and it's up to the committee to make a decision as to whether it wants to change the threshold or keep it at the 65% level. Again, the results of the two evaluations in 2023 suggested that in each evaluation we only had one project under the 65% threshold. We only had one project under the 70% threshold. So it may make sense for the COCS to really say to the lowest performing project, especially if they're scoring below 70%, that we really want you to work with the lead agency on a performance improvement plan for your project, so that and projects need to be mindful that HUD is asking the COC continuously, have you reallocated funds? We did reallocate in 2022 because we had reached agreement with a couple projects that they weren't performing well, and they agreed to reallocate. In the future, I think HUD is going to continue to ask, are you reallocating low performing projects? And part of the I think task of the COC is to be clear with our projects, especially those that are low performing, that we really want you to work on improving performance, so that we can really say to HUD, quite honestly, all of Durham's projects are performing pretty well. When you have a project that is, below 70%, on a tool that, we tweak it from year to year, but, there's not been a whole lot of, radical changes to how we're evaluating projects, particularly in terms of, overall scoring. In some ways, quite honestly, we've made it easier for projects to score well on the tool, because we've added some bonus points that enable projects to make up for some areas where they may not be scoring particularly well. We have probably the biggest challenge for any one project might be with Fresh Start, which typically does not score well under project efficiency because it is a rapid rehousing project, but its target population is chronically homeless people, so their overall project efficiency does not, it's more expensive to provide longer term rapid rehousing support, and so their efficiency of that project is understandably lower, and we can but even within that, the second evaluation of 2023, Fresh Start scored above the 70% threshold.
Okay. I think information such as that, in terms of just, again, the challenges that are part of housing individuals who have chronic homelessness, as well as comorbidities around their health and mental health and behavioral health concerns. It's just a challenge. So that type of information, I think, just helps to better understand the numbers. And so I'm just going to speak for me. I think that's really good that's good insight, because again, the data can say one thing, but I think when you drill down to maybe some of the other information that kind of adds a value to where that number actually is. And also, I'm wondering, compared to other cities comparable to Durham, is that something that's typical? But again, it's going to vary based on the housing market, the number of individuals that are being funneled through the coordinated intake process, as well as their housing barriers and their housing readiness. So, I mean, it's a little bit more complex than just the numbers. And I think that's what I'm kind of getting at, that, we should better understand some of the narratives that are driving some of the information and the aggregate data that we look at, to have a better insight about it. So, Ms. Renee, I see your hand up.
I just wanted to find out, in response to all the information you've given us, is there any place where we annotate or provide this information, appendices or something that would give the fuller picture when we report out the data?
I'm not sure what additional information you're seeking, Renee. We do publicly post the applications. We share the results of the evaluations with the projects, as well as we regularly report the results of the evaluations to the Homeless Services Advisory Committee. We also have, a data dashboard that Melissa is working to get connected to our COC website that would provide ongoing updates of project evaluation, not only for our COC funded projects, but for all of the projects that are participating in the Durham COC, whether or not they're getting COC funding. So are you looking for, do you have a sense for what additional information you're seeking?
One example was just what Tracy mentioned. I was just wondering if the background that you just gave us regarding Fresh Start, if there was a place to annotate or add a number one in an appendices at the bottom of whatever the graph it is that you have, if there is a place to add that type of information. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
I'm learning, so it sounded good to get that broader behind the scenes information than just looking at 70% or 69%.
But I'm also wondering, Lloyd, I know HUD has upcoming training, and I think they've got a webinar coming up soon regarding just homelessness services and providing permanent supportive housing and different entities along the housing continuum. But are you aware, or just in terms of information, learning more about how HUD is addressing, or what the actual market is across this country regarding the need for affordable housing, and then also permanent supportive housing as it relates to the population we serve? How's that impacting the overall programs across the country or in certain regions? I know our regional office out of North Carolina covers North Carolina, South Carolina, I think Georgia, not sure if Virginia or Florida is a part of their region, but I do know those are 3 of the states that they cover in terms of their funded projects that they monitor. But I'm just wondering, are they on the national level, the macro level, are they looking at how the housing market and the need for more permanent supportive housing, if not even the release of more vouchers, is impacting the number of people that are being served or just being impacted by different projects that are funded through local COCs?
I think HUD is very aware of the challenges that communities are currently experiencing with addressing the needs of people experiencing homelessness. The 2022 special NOFO for rural homelessness and unsheltered homelessness was partly a response to that. HUD is aware that many communities, especially on the West Coast, are seeing significant increases in unsheltered homelessness, and they're, trying to, I think, pay a lot of attention as well as use the federal resources available to address homelessness as best they can. Just this morning, for example, HUD released a notice of funding opportunity specifically to address youth homelessness, and we'll be exploring potentially opportunities to apply for that funding. It's a limited pot of funding, but the minimum grant award would be $200,000. And I think the maximum is like $2 million, and they envision 35 communities across the nation, with that NOFO being funded with that NOFO. So that's not very many when you consider there's about 400 continuum of care across the entire nation. But may be able to pull together a regional application with our partners in Wake and Orange counties that might be competitive for those funds. So HUD, I would say, is aware, and they're partnering with us as best they can to use the federal funds as well as other funds. And we need to continue to do our best as well.
Okay, all right. That's good to know, because I think we all need to understand it on the local level, but also we're not an anomaly. This is happening across the country, and so I'm always concerned when we're evaluating performances of different projects, if we're just being cognizant that one, we're working within a very tight market with very low vacancies, but also many of the people that we serve have a lot of housing barriers. So it's just harder sometimes to help them maneuver into housing, and also sustain that housing once they're housed. So,
right.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Are there any other comments or questions for Lloyd as we wrap up? Okay. Seeing none, that was our last agenda item. And so we're at the end, and I will gladly give you back some of your time for your morning, and for the work that you're involved in. So if I can get a motion for us to adjourn, we can politely end this meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you,
Have a
Ms.
nice
Angela.
weekend.
You too.
I'll second. This is Eliza.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Eliza. Okay. With that motion, we are now adjourned. Thank you for your time. Have a good afternoon and a good weekend. To any of the veterans on the call, thank you for your service. Ms. Lloyd.
Yeah, briefly, but before we conclude, Melissa did post a number of documents in the chat regarding our ranking policy, for example, as well as our policies and procedures in the reference to HUD's, the interim rule as well. So be mindful of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Have a good day. Happy Veterans Day for all.
Yes, thank you all. Have a good
Have a good day,
afternoon.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.